Intro music.
Come on in.
A star for the ages for Tony Gwynn, number 3,000.
They have acquired Eric Johnson and Fernando Tatis Jr. from the White Sox in exchange for James Shield.
Welcome to Slam Diego!
My name is Joey.
My name is James.
And this, James, it's the Brothers Padre.
Yay! Guess who's back. That's the only line I know of that song.
Yeah. Pretty good. Yeah.
I am a musical genius.
Yes, you are. As loyal listeners know, you know all my musical references. And you often tell me music stuff I don't know.
Yeah.
So it's in the lexicon of our characters.
I know all.
In our wiki, it says that. It's like under your name is musical genius.
Yep.
Yeah.
I know all the songs.
All the song. James, yes, the rumors are true. You and I have come to a podcasting bargaining agreement.
Yes.
We've been lockout the past few months. People have been asking me about it, and we love our listeners, and I wanted them to have the best product possible. So, yes, I did initiate a lockout. I knew that you weren't gonna play fair, and so it just so happens that it correlated with the MLB lockout. But for the integrity of the podcast, I had to initiate a lockout, and thankfully today we came to an agreement on a multi-year podcasting bargaining agreement.
Yes. And for the truth, what actually happened was my younger brother named Joseph.
Who's Joseph?
I don't know.
Some guy.
Some guy. Life got hectic and crazy and busy, and decided that the podcast wasn't worth it. And he didn't like our members, and he decided he didn't want any part of this, even though we had promised all of our listeners we were going to do some content, even though one of the Brothers Padres watched several terrible baseball movies because we were going to review them. And that Joseph fellow said no.
Listen, I mean, this is why we had to have a lockout, because you, or according to the bargaining agreement, henceforth known as James, you weren't bringing to the table things that were fair and honorable to the podcast. For one, I knew you were going to have a bad attitude about it, so I had to lock us out. That's just as that's the authority I have for the integrity of the podcast. But
every idea that we had during the off season, we wrote down before this last season ended, and they all came from Joseph. He wanted us to review the other two Sandlot movies, Untalked About.
Yeah. He
wanted us to review a show called Pitch, and I watched all of these shows and movies, but in all fairness, your life did get a little crazy.
Yeah, whatever. Okay, end of bit, James. Because in all honesty, baseball's back, baby.
Yes. They were out. They were locked out for 99 days.
Yep. We did not.
I've got 99 problems, and baseball's not one anymore.
That's right.
That doesn't make any sense.
No. Truthfully, we didn't want to talk about the lockout over and over again every week.
That is true.
The past month, we're like, I don't really want to do a podcast and just hope and give everyone hope. So
acknowledge that. Yeah, because up until a week ago, there was no hope.
So we are getting baseball back. April 7th is the new tentative opening day. We're getting a full season. Do you want to just go over the new rules and kind of break down the lockout and then go from there?
I mean, basically, we're going to get 162 games.
Yeah.
Where the season's going to start a week later, and all of those games are going to be made up by full 9-inning doubleheaders.
So wild. So there's new rules in place with the CBA, the collective bargaining agreement. I'd recommend you go to Jeff Passan's Twitter to get the financial details. Honestly, I don't really care about like the exact numbers, so I'm not going to tell you. Just look it up. Okay. So
because honestly, that's the nitty gritty nonsense.
Right.
The big rules are the ones that are affecting the viewerships,
Right.
The viewers'
so
experience.
yeah, like you said, there's every doubleheader is going to be 9-inning games, which is I kind of think is a weird backwards track because I thought 7-inning doubleheaders were nicer on players.
I liked them too.
I just feel like,
And if there's any tape of me in previous episodes saying I didn't like them, I was being misled.
and with that, there's no more ghost runners starting in second.
That is the best rule ever because all of a sudden that Ghost Runner rule was, what are we, not playing the big leagues?
Right.
That's for the extra innings. No extra
Yeah. So extra innings now. There's no one starting in second. Extra innings. So we will once again get 20-inning monstrosities, which are fun if you're there and you have nothing to do the next morning at the stadium.
Having been to a couple of games like that, they are fun.
Yeah.
As long as you have sick time for your job.
Yes. And of course, the big one, Universal DH in the National League and the American League. We're going to be, from henceforth, talking a lot about looking at the Padres team for 2022. And I can guarantee you, with the Universal DH, it looks great.
It does look great.
The lineup looks nice.
I would have liked to have said DH for the National League, but for one season in the American League, has to see how they like it.
Yeah. The Angels like fine, like except for the Angels. You can. We know your game. We know your shtick. And the other big rule: the expanded playoffs. James, there are now going to be a 12-team playoff,
6 in each league.
6 in each league, similar to 2020. That's going to be the kind of going forward the playoffs.
The division champions in each league, in each division, and the 3 best records after that.
Right.
The one rule I do like about the playoffs is it's whoever has the 2 best records
Yeah.
get a bye week. So if, say, the Padres and the Dodgers both have over 100 games and they're the 2 best records, they get us, even though one's a division champion, one's a wild
It
card.
is nice.
They both skip.
That is very nice. Good example. Last year, the Giants and the Dodgers would have both skipped, and that's totally fair, I think.
Yeah.
It incentivizes some level of playing super hard in the league.
Yeah, because the amount of teams that clinch and then go, hey, let's just call up all of our
Right.
AAA talent and give our guys a rest for a week.
Right. MLB now has in 2023 a new committee that has the ability to institute quick rule changes. New rules that could come into effect: a pitch clock, larger bases. James, you and I are both large base fans, so we're big fans of that. Limiting defensive shifts and an automated strike zone. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, but it gives the committee the power to implement them with a 45-day notice.
So this is one of the things that apparently it was a sticking point early on in the negotiations, these rules. And so they just sort of said, what if we make a committee
Of players
and we'll all try experiment with it. So basically it's like, we're not going to solve anything. We're just going to kick this problem down the road. And if nobody agrees on it, it just won't happen. And we won't stop gameplay.
Like any large quasi-bureaucratic organization, they have tons of committees where people get paid to do nothing. So, I think it's a win for everybody, especially the people on the committee.
This is true.
You texted me this, and I didn't realize it until just now, that in 2023, because of expanded playoffs, MLB is going to be changing the schedule also. So this will be next year. Every team will play every team at least once, which I think is pretty cool. I think in general, I like that.
So instead of us playing everybody in our division 19 and 21 times a year, we'll play the Diamondbacks and Dodgers 14 times a year, and we'll have at least a 3-game division, either a 3-game series, either in San Diego or say in New York Yankee Stadium.
Yeah.
We'll play everybody in the league at least once.
I think it's cool.
Yeah, I do too.
I think as long as the schedules aren't awful, and
Yeah, there's no like, hey, we're playing the Diamondbacks. Now we have to fly all the way to play Yankee Stadium.
Right.
Then we have to fly all the way back to play in Seattle.
right.
But the one that I was like, I'm shocked it didn't get passed was pitch clock.
Is what?
They've
Yeah,
been
pitch
talking
clock?
about that forever.
I think it helps. It just hasn't come in. Like I think all three of these have a good chance of hitting.
Yes, because pitch clocks for people that don't go to minor league ball games are in every minor league team.
And it is nice.
It is nice.
You'll see it. Like you see minor leaguers that come up from using that system, and they have a good better pace. They just like
Korea has a pitch clock.
Yeah.
I know that they have a big horn that blows when it doesn't go on. I don't know if Japan has one, but I know Korea does. And several Latin teams have them as well.
I still am not a huge fan of eliminating the shift, so I hope it's like limiting in some way, like you can only use certain aggressive ones for certain times towards the game. 'Cause I think, like, I don't know. In my mind, the shift isn't the problem. And if the solution to that problem is hit more home runs or go the other way, those are both exciting outcomes that I want to watch as a fan. So, like, yeah, to me, it's like the shift thing is like there are three big hitters in the league that complain about it all the time. And part of it's like, just hit more home runs, man, or go the other way.
That's my biggest problem about the shift complaints. I think if you're a manager and you want to put all 9 of your guys on first base,
Yeah, you should be able to.
You should be able to do it. I mean, you pitcher and catcher, and then everybody else on first base, you should be allowed to do that. It's your team to do it as it wants. It is up to the hitter to go the other way.
Yeah.
These hitters get paid now, what, $750,000 minimum is the new agreement? Learn to move your shoulder a bit to hit the opposite field.
Or just go, just own the home run. Let's just own it. Just go, like, just do it.
Yeah, and there was a lot of, like, Joey Gallo is the biggest guy who's can't hit opposite field to save his life. Guess what that tells me? That means he's not a good hitter.
Right.
If he can't hit the opposite field, he's not a good hitter.
Right.
Learn to hit if he could hit the other field, he wouldn't. Because he hits 40 home runs a year and a batting average of 210.
Yeah.
If he could go the other way, he'd still have 40 home runs and probably hit 3.
Yeah.
So no, I think the shift rule is stupid, and I think you should be allowed to do as many plays as many crazy shifts as you want.
Yep.
I've always thought that. You know this. We've talked.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of other rules around the draft that I think actually make that help out the players. They are expanding the amateur draft, and like all this kind of stuff is like, to me, it's like pretty. What's the word I'm looking for? It's just pretty granular at this point. Like it's this part of the CBA, the collective balance threshold, the competitive balance threshold, has been raised at $230 million, and that'll increase. That's effectively the soft tax, basically, that you get pinged with if you go past it. So if you go past $230 million, you'll get a tax. And if you go past, and then that'll be $233 million, $237 million, $241 million, and $244 million over the course of the 5-year agreement. And there's now a third surcharge. So if you go past that by $60 million, you get an additional tax. So people are calling it the Steve Cohen tax because he's the only guy rich enough to do that. Them and the Dodgers. Do you have any thoughts about the competitive balance threshold?
No, I've always had a general thought about the tax and the payroll limit.
Yeah.
If you're gonna have a limit, you have a limit.
Yes. Have a real cap.
Have a real cap. You cannot spend this more than this amount of money, or else.
Right.
And then you wouldn't. I mean, it sucks because maybe Fernando Tatis Jr. wouldn't have gotten a $300 million contract if there was something like that. And players would start getting paid a little bit less. Instead of a $300 million, a $200 million contract. Oh my goodness, how is someone going to survive? But I think if you're going to have it's always bugged me, the tax. Somebody who's willing to spend $260 million to win a baseball game, $1 million extra tax isn't going to bug them.
No.
So you either have a hard stop like football and basketball does, or not at all.
Right, I agree. This one's an interesting one. Teams can only option an individual player to the minor leagues a maximum of 5 times per year. Previously, it was unlimited. So last year, the Padres definitely had a few relievers that were up and down more than 5 times.
And that's why, because Nabil Krismet would have. Yeah. He was that guy was the unsung hero of last season.
Yeah,
but he was up and down every day.
Yeah,
Reby Rivas was the same way.
Yeah, I think it's smart. I think it's a little cruel to have no limit. So I'm glad they have a limit.
That will change throughout time because 5 does seem a little limited because you can't. If half your team gets hurt, like the Padres,
yeah,
I don't know. I'm okay with not having it, or maybe if they bring him up a 6th time, they have to give him a big league contract.
Yeah. Players finish 1st or 2nd Rookie of the Year voting will be granted a full year of service time. Teams that promote prospects to the opening day roster will also be eligible to receive bonus draft picks if a player finished the top 3 for Rookie of the Year voting or top 5 for MVP or Cy Young voting. Both these measures are meant to combat service time manipulation. And as a team, as a follower of a team that doesn't care about service time manipulation, that's good.
Yeah,
that's a good.
You know what they call that? The Tampa Bay Rays rule.
Right, 100%. A few other things. I'm reading this from Jeff, aggregated set of rules on our baseball Reddit. Amateur draft has been locked in 20 rounds. Basically, the league is committed to raising spending budgets for the draft and has committed a rule that allows the top 300 prospects to participate in a pre-draft combine. So that's kind of cool. So I hate NFL combine is like the most boringest thing to me.
It's stupid.
It's like, oh, these are peak athletes doing peak athlete things. Cool. We already know I'm going to draft them, so that's cool. He ran fast.
The combine made sense during a time when
you have no information.
There was no information when it took 3 days to cross the country, and they had all these guys show up and people who've never seen you before. But we live in an information age where you and I were friends with a professional scout.
Right.
He scouts people all the way from Australia, South America. He takes a video of somebody. He can live stream an athlete in Australia, and the team that he works for can watch it.
Yeah. Yep. So I think it's a little silly, but whatever. People like it. People love combines these days. And I think that's mostly it. There's some other things. There's going to be there's no game 163 tiebreakers anymore. All playoff tiebreakers will be determined through NFL type formulas, effectively like who has the best combined record against each other and stuff like that. Right. Kind of a bummer, but also whatever.
So basically, you can't. Every series is going to be an odd number of games.
Yep.
So somebody will always have a better record than the other person.
Right.
But that was already the case. Yeah. We never had a 10-game series against somebody. Well, it's always 11 or 9.
I think finally on this list, a new 6-pick draft lottery will be implemented in order to combat tanking. I like draft lotteries. I think they're fun. And I don't think it'll combat tanking, but it's a noble effort.
Why don't you think so?
I think...
First of all, explain what the 6-pick draft is.
Yeah, so basically you, and this is how other sports, you basically get... either you get like the top 6 picks are randomly assorted throughout all the teams. So the NBA is like this, where it's like, the Warriors are just as likely to get the number 1 pick as the Pelicans.
So basically what it says is if you are the Pirates and you suck every year, you don't keep getting the number 1 draft picks. And
just shipping those guys away.
So it incentivizes teams to tank and suck to get number 1 draft picks, to trade or to store up number 1 draft picks to have a good team later on.
Right.
It's a randomized now, so teams can just get number 1 draft picks.
Yeah. It incentivizes a little bit, but like top 6, like in the draft, you're not guaranteed. The top 6 aren't always stars.
This is true.
Like Tyler Glasnow and Austin Meadows from the Pirates were good prospects, but I think they're like late rounders though. They were still traded to the Rays for nothing. I mean, Chris Archer's not nothing, but he didn't do very well as a Pirate. But yeah,
I don't think I could tell you a single Pirate's name. They have that
Jacob Stalling, only because he's a big bald head.
They have that really tall shortstop.
What's his name?
Really
Curly
tall
hair.
Yeah.
He also plays center field. What's his name?
Doesn't matter.
Whatever. We're not a Pirates podcast. Go listen to Brothers Pirates.
Exactly.
They're good people over there.
Yeah.
James, that's kind of it.
The only other thing that was a sticking point that actually almost cost another week of games was the International League draft.
Yeah, that was and that's an interesting one just for information for people that don't know. There was MLB wants to institute an international draft, whereas now you have international money, pool money or signing money that players can just float to random people and say, hey, we want to sign you for $7 million to join our minor league organization or whatever. It's been like that for a while. And MLB is like, hey, we want it to be where there's a draft of just anyone can enter internationally. And it's much lower. Like, instead of just you have Juan Soto making $8 million to sign to be a national or whatever, it's just hey, there's set slots. So the top first rounders get this much money, second rounders get this much money, but it's like another draft, but it's for international people. And the MLB came out as they wanted, and the MLB Players Association, specifically the Latin players, were like, we don't like it because we feel like it lowers a big payday for players that potentially may not ever people say it's a huge. People really, really, really strive to get that big initial payday.
Well, I saw
because you're not guaranteed actual,
Yeah,
success.
I saw David Ortiz talk about it, and he was the biggest pusher of this.
Yeah,
he talked about how if sometimes you have, that's why baseball's so popular up there, because they know that it could be an escape and a help. You can be a minor league ball player; they'll sign you for $500,000, which is nothing to a big league ball club. But that's life-changing, generational changing for somebody in South America.
Yeah.
So I kind of get where they're going with that. I get that the reason why baseball is so hugely popular over there and in Central America, the Caribbean, all that, is because it is considered a way you can save your family.
Oh, yeah. I mean, money is powerful in that,
because there are a lot of players that are signed for $100,000, $200,000 just to come and try out.
Yeah.
They wash out after a season or two. They go back, but their family has a house with a roof.
Oh, I mean, and you see the abuse of the draft all the time of the late rounders. They're drafted for $1,000.
Yeah.
And great, you draft for $1,000. Now go to this awful low A facility in the middle of nowhere that's barely anyone cares about. And it's just not a great situation. So they're going to reconsider it effectively throughout the season. And if it does not work out, then they're going to revert back to the old rules, effectively.
Yes.
So, all's well that ends well.
So basically what happened was a bunch of the really big sticking points that took 99 days to solve sort of just came out with, what if we figure it out later? okay. But we were all super gung-ho about it and dug our heels in.
Let's also remember that amidst those 99 days, 6 weeks, MLB decided they didn't want to negotiate.
Yeah.
From December to mid-January, like, we're on vacation.
Do you know who the MLB's chief negotiator was?
Who is it?
Yeah.
Dan something.
Yeah, you know who what his job is? He's the owner of the Colorado Rockies.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
The worst owner in baseball who makes some of the stupidest decisions in baseball. So much so, like, Colorado tried to recall him. They voted. There was like protests against him because he traded Arenado for nothing.
Yeah.
He was their chief negotiator. Him and Rob Manfred, there's not a brain cell between the two of them. And I think the other problem was one of the MLB, the Players Association chief negotiator, was Max Scherzer, and that guy's a lunatic.
Yeah.
So you had an idiot and a lunatic trying to negotiate. You know why they took 6 weeks off? Because they couldn't handle it anymore.
James, what are your general thoughts about the CBA? Do you have any hot takes? Any commentary about the whole process?
Nothing has affected the way the game is viewed by me.
Yeah.
They haven't done anything stupid like, hey, in the 5th inning, we all switch sides. That was always because it's Rob Manfred we're dealing with.
Right.
I just figured, 7th inning, everyone takes their shoes off.
Right.
Like, there was nothing stupid like that. So, all in all, the minor changes that might happen, a bigger base, which is what's going to be an extra 2 inches bigger.
Right.
That doesn't affect my enjoyment of the game.
Right.
A pitch clock.
Automated strike zone.
Automated strike zone. But that was that. We'll talk about that in a year or two.
Yeah.
Deal. Everything was like, we'll talk about
Right.
later deal. Which, even if they talk about it, won't cause a strike.
Right.
So ultimately, it took them 99 days, almost giving me a panic ulcer for nothing.
Yeah, there was a time 3 days ago, I was like, oh, we're not getting baseball in 2022. And I got sad. I got very sad. I was like, maybe I should, I was like, to feel again, I went on some conspiracy websites. Like, I just need to feel something.
Is the Earth round?
I was just like, this is so sad. I'd rather be mad than sad. But I'm glad they figured it out. I am very, very glad. Because baseball, I love baseball. I'm a big fan.
I know. I hear you do a podcast.
Yeah, I do. I indeed do a podcast with someone else.
Oh, really? Is he a good guy?
Sometimes.
At least he's a good guy. Sometimes.
My only commentary was like, it feels like maybe we should have known 90% less of the information that came out. Because I didn't really need to know minute by minute what was happening. Because it just gave me anxiety. It's like, oh, the MLB. Because if you didn't follow along on baseball Twitter.
Because not everyone did, but you and I certainly did.
Everyone was, that there was reporters reporting on every little thing. Like, literally, it was like, oh, Rob Manfred's on the player's side. Because they negotiated in several different locales where reporters were at. That at some point they were in a St. Louis Cardinals spring training facility in Jupiter, Florida. And
at one point they were in the Miami Marlins Stadium.
Right. And they would report,
which is the ugliest stadium in all of baseball. Why? Nowhere nothing got done there. It's ugly.
It's not pretty, that's for sure. That's for sure. Oh yeah, but anyway, they would report like, oh, Rob Manfred would now walk to the player side of the facility. Oh man, chief negotiator from the MLB is now walking to the other side. And you're like, this is not reporting. You're just making me mad. You're making me anxious.
Yeah. The thing is, like, what really ends up saying is they finally narrowed it down to two guys.
Right.
To talk to each other, the head of the Players Association and the head of the owners. And that's when everything got hammered out. Why couldn't you do this 99 days ago?
Right. It seems like there would have been a more efficient way. Instead
of a room of a bunch of adult men yelling at each other, which just seems like I've seen.
Max Scherzer would be like, Negotiating with Max Scherzer sounds terrifying.
Yes.
Like, imagine you're selling your used Ford car. I don't know why Ford. You don't own a Ford. Imagine you're selling your used car.
Yeah, but one of us at this table does own a Ford,
It's true.
and it is used.
It is used. Let's say if I'm selling my very not mint condition 2013 Ford Fiesta, and Max Scherzer comes up and he starts hardballing with me, I just give him the first offer. I don't think I have the guts to go against that guy. You give me that crazy Max Scherzer look, and you're like, you're gonna kill me. I'm gonna die right now.
Why don't, you know what? I'll just give you both my cars, mine and my wife's.
We forgot to mention this too. So I'm this whole time been checking to see if deals are through, because this CBA landed. By the time this podcast comes out, I'm going to say a few
3 o'clock
hours
on Friday.
Right.
Thursday.
Right. So, but that means almost instantly free agency has been opened, right? And so I've been looking up basically if free agents are going to come out, because we're going to transition to the Padres, which is actually a Padres podcast, because the Padres are expected to finalize their roster this week, because spring training technically can start immediately. Whomever can report.
Pitchers and catchers should report as soon as tomorrow.
Right.
So for those that aren't following, Hugh Darvish has been pitching in some high school, I think Grossmont High.
Yeah, I can't remember. Yeah.
And so has several of the other pitchers.
Yeah.
They've
Joe Musgrove's been in Arizona with a bunch of other like NL West pitchers, working out. Yeah. But I've been hoping that we're going to get new free agents in the Padres, because Peter Seidler in his message to the fans said we are in a great position to finalize our roster, which tells me that we're getting Nick Castellanos in left field.
That would be awesome.
And Matt Olson from the Athletics, and the current first baseman is no longer the current first baseman. But I told myself, James. On January 1st, this is now months after January 1st, one of my New Year's resolutions to be nicer to the first baseman of the San Diego Padres, who was signed to a $144 million deal over 7 years by the Scott Boras Corporation.
Yes. So here's the thing. That is true. And
I am off topic, but
there's no way, and everyone who thinks that the GMs haven't been negotiating when they weren't supposed to during this lockout you're foolish if you think that.
Right.
Of course they've been negotiating.
Right.
Because they might not have been able to talk to players directly, but you can talk to their agents.
Right.
And the agents can talk to their players. You might not be able to make a trade, but guess what? AJ Preller can call other GMs and be like, hey, when this lockout ends, do you want this guy? Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm willing to bet that we're going to have another podcast in the next 3 days.
Yeah, I think we're going to be as well. I think we're going to have another podcast. I think we're going to sign more people. And, basically there's a bunch of rumors now coming out. They're saying that we're linked to Michael Conforto pre-lockout. That's interesting. Michael Conforto. Michael Conforto, which is like the ideal New York name.
Yes.
He's a New York Met. High contact, good, generally good player. Famous for putting his elbow into the strike zone to walk off the Marlins in a walk-off ace by pitch. That literally stole a strike with his elbow, but the umpire literally was blind. So, that's what he's famous for. And being a good hitter. Yeah, that's an interesting one. But yeah, I think I think the Padres aren't done. I think we're going to see more. We have a bunch of stuff now. We can plan our next few weeks before the season starts. We'll be reviewing what we believe our roster is going to be.
Yes.
Much like if you're here last year, we did a preview of the roster. Let's hope that this time around they finalize the roster before we start the podcast. So,
and half of the players don't get hurt after we do it.
Right. There was a little issue last year, if I recall.
After we did that episode, half our team all had Tommy John surgery.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. So we're excited. I'm excited to dig back into it. Think about our depth graphs and our ideal lineups going forward. It's going to be a fun time.
Yes.
Any other comments, James, before we close?
Baseball's back. The whole world might be going to heck in a handbasket, but baseball's back, so some good can still be had in this world.
I agree, James. We're on Spotify. You're probably listening to this on Spotify or YouTube. We're on YouTube as well. Give us a subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter.
And leave a comment.
Just we like comments.
Say how much you think Joey is, not a good co-host.
Wow. Listen, this is why I had to lock you out. I knew your attitude was going to be bad. And I'm concerned about the integrity and product that we give to our loyal listeners.
All of your ideas. You said they were all your ideas, and you said no.
And until next time, James, go Padres.
Go Padres.
There it is! Oh, doctor! You can hang a star on that, baby!